Anyway, yes, back to the point about the explosion of creativity. Um, a lot of people today, and we have to face this reality, are in complete despair and have given up. There are clubs in Berkeley. People gather once a month, like people used to gather for church, to discuss their philosophy, which is that the human race is finished. So don't do anything, just gather and create a little tiny community around it and do your thing and so forth. And this is growing. I know people have written books about this, a philosophy of nihilism and giving up. And they have big retreats where hundreds of people come and all this. So, let's not underestimate the danger we're in as a species, that we are facing extinction, period. And when scientists tell us we have 8 years left to change things, we should pay attention. I'm sure that's why you're putting on that kind of a program. But in a time of despair or temptation to despair, time of darkness, obviously we have to dig deep. We have to dig deep and find out where the real power is, the real light, to turn this darkness into something better. And Thomas Berry makes an important point that often times of cultural darkness and depression is when great things happen. He talks about the 3rd century in China and the end of an era, and in that confusion and chaos, a whole new birth happened of Buddhism and the rest that actually created a new version of Chinese culture that lasted, right up to the 20th century. And then he compares it to the dark ages that preceded the breakthroughs of the Middle Ages as well in Europe. And I was just struck just the other day by this amazing story. This is 2 days ago. I saw this in the internet. I wonder if you saw it. It's a 17-year-old teenager in Africa, in Sierra Leone, very poor country in Africa, named Jeremiah Thoronka. His country has only electricity for only 26% of the population. And here's a 17-year-old who created a device that in fact is not driven by sun power or wind power or gas, oil, or coal. It actually is a device he puts underneath the roads, underneath the streets. And just the energy that's generated by trucks and cars driving over the streets, he's now provided electricity for 12,000 people. And he just won a prize for this, $100,000 prize, which is a lot of money for a fellow like that, for sure. But the point is that don't underestimate our species. Our capacity for imagination and healing is really untapped. And so we need stories like this. This is the blue man. The blue man is the archetype of art and creativity and of the heart, the service of the heart, the compassion of the heart. Hildegard painted a picture of the man in sapphire blue going like this, because compassion is that energy from the heart into the hands. And the point I'm trying to make is, and notice he's 17 and in high school. This is not a PhD in engineering who did this. It was just someone of his generation, of course, who's not in denial, which means he's unlike 50% of Americans and one whole political party in America. When you're not in denial, you're free to let the imagination roll. And that's the light, that's enlightenment, and that's action. And if you take this simple little device that he created and think about laying those things in every highway in the world, good God. And I think it means, I'd have to get scientists more involved, but I think it means we don't even have to, bust ourselves going after solar power and wind power. It's already here, or at least it's another arrow in our quiver. There are many arrows in our quiver to take on climate change. But the one thing we cannot do is fall into despair and nihilism. That's the one thing we cannot do. We must bring out the best of ourselves. And the kind of horrors we're going through as a nation today in terms of the lies. There's no spirituality when there's lies. We have a whole party now building itself on lies and the world's greatest liar. We're not going to get anywhere with lies. We're not going to get anywhere with denial, which is a lie. And we've got to bring out the best. And that doesn't mean that we're not all sinners and we're not all imperfect, because we're imperfect. That's why we need one another, make up for our mistakes and our imperfections. But the point is that our species has a lot going for it, but we should not underestimate the depth of the extinction reality that we face. And it's not just us, of course, but we're bringing down so many other species, that we must listen to science and at the same time, listen to our own hearts and our creativity, which is, as the Jewish scriptures say, the image of God in us, that we have these powers of creativity and imagination that really no other species has. And this has gotten us into our trouble because that's where evil gets so well funded. And we have all the nuclear weapons and all the submarines delivering that anyone would ever want. And then we have defense departments wanting still more weapons, et cetera, et cetera. So we still have this good and evil going on inside of us all the time. And we can't be in denial about either. We've got to pull out the good. And the young are leaders in this regard. Our work as elders is to support them and to help them to connect, to get their visions into reality, to incarnate their visions.
I so appreciate what you're saying. And we do a lot of environmental shows, Matthew. And actually, most of the climate people we talk to say that we're down to 4 years.
4 years.
We're down to 4 years.
Wow. Wow.
Um, so for you, and I love that story. I did not know that story about the young man. So I'm going to go.
Oh, look him up. Yeah, it's an amazing story, just amazing. And to me, that's what hope is, hearing those stories of what we are capable of doing.
Do you personally believe that we are going through a metamorphosis and that there is an awakening world that is emerging from where we are?
Well, I think we are. I think the publicity, if you will, around the COP gathering in Glasgow is part of that. I think that what Pope Francis did on the eve of that gathering, to gather leaders of 40 religions, all the world religions really, to sign together a common statement about the seriousness of the crisis and the sacredness of the earth. I think that's important. If religions can come out of their shells and come out of their pugilistic relationships with one another in the face of this tremendous challenge, I think that is a very great sign of hope. And I think that dealing with gender justice is equally important, that we have to put brakes on patriarchy and the reptilian brain, and men have to become more authentically masculine, which means more virtuous, because the word virtue comes from the word for man. It is manliness, and it is excellence, and it is virility, and it is vigor. And we need that move. And because authoritarianism, this perversion of masculinity, is everywhere in the world today. It's very strong, obviously, in our country, but you see it in Hungary and Poland and Russia and Brazil, etc. And men have to wake up and become more authentically masculine. And also, we have to speak out about this inauthentic masculinity, the authoritarianism virus that is endangering us all. And of course, women have to continue to bring out their own powers as women. And I think even this Supreme Court meeting this week about abortion is part of that thing. How is it possible that men in black robes think they have a right, it's not in the Constitution, to tell a woman what to do with their bodies? It's not in the Constitution. Now, Roe versus Wade is an imperfect document, but nowhere in it does it say that a woman has to have an abortion. So all these people who are zealous against abortion, fine. It's not really, the whole thing has been so misframed. Abortion, the Roe versus Wade isn't really about abortion. It's about women who have chosen to have an abortion. Will we make it safe, or will we have more death in the streets, in the back rooms? That's what's at stake here. And it's, of course, appalling and utterly scary that currently a majority of this so-called Supreme Court seems to want to have the government, the state, and male politicians, tell every woman in the country what to do with their body. I mean, if that's not a sin, I don't know what is. And let's wake up and start telling the truth. And of course, the impact, the influence of these hyper masculine fascist organizations, whether the right wing of the evangelicals or the Opus Dei in Catholicism, these are running things. How many Opus Dei Supreme Court men are there? Opus Dei is very secret. We don't know for sure. But that attitude is running the Catholic bishops in America, because a head archbishop of Opus Dei, of all the bishops of America, is Opus Dei. And I've done a book on that, on Opus Dei. I know Opus Dei, and they are fascist. Hook, line, and sinker. Their founder, Escriva, was a fascist priest in Spain, and he worked with the fascist dictator Franco hand in hand for decades. So let's get the truth out. That so many journalists, including Catholic journalists, don't have the balls to tell the truth. And that's part of being an authentic man, is to tell the truth. How are we going to solve anything without the truth? And the truth is that a lot of important institutions in the West, including the Supreme Court, including CIA and FBI and so forth, have been invaded by Opus Dei over the last 40 years. And we have to put that out there. It's not about putting any individual down, but it is about recognizing the truth and doing something about it. So that's part of this enlightenment that has to happen. We have to grow up, take responsibility, deal with our moral outrage in appropriate ways, but deal with it. Don't sit on it. It'll be too late. So our work is cut out for us. And you've just said it's 4 years, not 8. That's, you have to deal with that too.
Yes,
I'm
you out with that one. But, yeah, I mean, I won't go into the science of it, but yeah, it's now really down to 4 years that things are going to have any semblance of what we've known.
Mm. Yeah. Well, one meditation I've been doing lately is I'm very curious about all these hominid tribes that they're discovering now, because we know about Neanderthal and the Datarans and all that, but now they're finding all these new hominids in Southeast Asia, and they're going to find a lot more. I think they've named now a total of 14 such branches of the hominid species, if you will. But the bottom line is this: only one is still standing, Homo sapiens. The others are all out of business. They're all extinct. So can this sober us up maybe? Can this remind us of the seriousness of our times, and of the decisions we make, and of the politicians we elect, and of the laws we pass, and all the rest? I find that just very important to meditate on, how all of these branches are extinct, which means we could easily go extinct. We can easily go extinct. Everyone else has. It's the lazy way to go, maybe for us. And some people are choosing that when they say, oh, it's all over already. But so these are dire times. These are apocalyptic times. And we have to call on the deepest resources we have. And that's why all the religions have to step up and bring what they can to the struggle, what they know about calming the reptilian brain and about honoring the sacredness of our existence and of Earth. And the rest is all details. So that's where I find us to be at this time.
Matthew, I agree with you, and I'm so grateful for way showers such as yourself who speak honestly and candidly, and your beautiful ability to weave some inspiration into these dire times, you know. And but to be honest, to be realistic, because it is dire and it is apocalyptic, and my shows and what we do, we are here to inspire people, but to also to educate, to find that balance of inspiration and education. And and thank you so much for being a big part of Saturday Night Live. We love you, and
Thank you for doing what you're doing. It's so important to offer platforms like this where people can get different messages than we usually get from our journalism world.
you know, as I was telling your partner Dennis, every week we get a lot of messages from people saying, "Thank you. This has become my church. You've become my lifeline. You know, my regular church shut down, or I can no longer go out, and so this is where they go to get hope, to get inspiration, to hear from luminaries such as yourself, and then to hear music, to hear, you know, to be entertained and inspired and educated. So we're really working to find that balance, and you provide that balance really beautifully for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And
God's blessings, and have a wonderful weekend, Matthew. Take care.
you too.
Talk to you again soon.
Thank you.